tile 6 years ago. And I think we did a much better job than they did theirs. But again, thanks to all of you who volunteered your time and put effort into the convention, because obviously if you spend any time down there at all, you know there's no possibility that it could come off without lots and lots of volunteers to come and help. So again, thank you all for all of that. As I've mentioned to you before, the convention handled well over 100 resolutions that went through these two houses, the House of Bishops and the House of Deputies. Again, it's a legislative process. Looks a whole lot like the United States government with the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives. And that's how bills essentially travel back and forth between houses. They get amended, and all those good things that you see in the government happens in the governance of the church. And this is how we operate. Once every 3 years, we have a general convention, and that is when we deal with the business of the household. So general convention, really, this time around was really built around a term that you're going to hear probably used a lot going forward. It's the 5 marks of mission in the Anglican Communion. These were developed actually probably 10 years ago, and they've been changed and rearranged and what have you. But there are now 165 countries in the world, all Anglicans, who have agreed to sort of adopt this model of mission, if you will, going forward in the church. You're going to hear lots and lots going forward about the Episcopal Church and the Anglican Communion becoming a more missional type church. What that means is a lot of what we've been talking about right here at Holy Family for a couple of years now, which is we Episcopalians, we Anglicans, have always been a bit of a highfalutin bunch, and on occasion have been known to sort of look down our noses at others, and others will come to us as they want to. That's sort of been our attitude. Well, that's obviously an attitude we can no longer afford. Also, that's really not what church is about. Church is about what's happening out there in the world. That's why you see in our own diocese, Bishop Kate here in the last 5 years putting such an emphasis on the ministry of the diaconate, of deacons. Deacons' responsibilities are to go out and identify the needs of the world and bring them to the doors of the church. So we'll see more and more deacons. Hopefully we might even have one in the not too distant future here at Holy Family. And basically, their job is to be a big pain in the rear of the local church, and to sort of take a stick and promise to be out there in the world doing those missional things that need to be done to further the kingdom. Now, the 5 marks of mission, and we'll at some other point, perhaps this could be a nice sermon one day. The 5 marks of mission are: 1, to proclaim the good news of the kingdom; 2, to teach, baptize, and nurture new believers; 3, to respond to human need with love and service; 4, to seek to transform unjust structures of society; and 5, to strive to safeguard the integrity of creation and sustain and renew the life of the earth. So what you will see is going forward in the church in years to come, that these 5 points is what all should be built around. In fact, there's even a resolution that was passed through General Convention that asked that at every local church, at every meeting, before the meeting begins, that the question be asked, how is it that what we are doing here Now, in order to get to, 100 or some resolutions, there were actually 400 resolutions that were originally submitted to convention. There's a committee on resolutions that has the wonderful job of sorting through all of those and finding what area they address and how they can be grouped together in some cases into a single resolution. But the interesting thing is that with these 400 pieces, these 400 resolutions that came in, 93 of the 400 dealt with the issue of restructuring the church. This is obviously a really hot issue in the church right now. We have been resistant to a restructuring of the church for a number of years. It's not as though this hasn't come up at convention before. It has, time after time, for about the last 12 years. However, this is the first time that it actually got some attention. And so, one of the big things that happened at convention is that there was a resolution passed to create a task force of 24 persons who will be chosen by the presiding bishop and the president of the House of Deputies to work over the next 3 years on a plan for the restructure of the church. Their report is due in December of 2014 and will be released to the wider church for obvious debate and what have you for the next general convention, which will be in 2015 and will be held in Salt Lake City. What will that look like? What will that encompass? Well, basically, nothing is off the table. So they're talking about probably restructure in hierarchy, probably a restructure in decision making. I would envision even more local autonomy than what churches already have in the church, sort of decentralizing a lot of the hierarchy. This is what I anticipate. I don't know for sure that that's what will happen. The General Convention, just as we do at our annual meeting, has to approve a budget. Only in their case, they call it a triennial budget because they only meet every 3 years. So the budget for the Episcopal Church for the next 3 years was approved at $111,516,000. Believe it or not, that's actually a reduction from the previous budget of $300,000, $100,000 a year. It's a start, but I think it also is an indicator of how much we do probably need to restructure the church. One of the other big things that came out of the convention is, who's ever heard the church referred to as 815? Well, 815 is 815 West 2nd Street in New York City, in Manhattan. That's the corner that the Episcopal Church owns. Costs $11 million a year to operate that building, and they only generate $4 million a year in revenue for rents. So it's been a suggestion that perhaps they get the heck out. Of course, that's been a difficult thing because there's a lot of prestige in that address, and presiding bishops like to hang out in Manhattan and do those Manhattan-type things. But it looks like that is finally going to happen too. They are looking to relocate the headquarters of the Episcopal Church somewhere so I have here, well, you just look like you're in pain. Why don't you move over to the shady spot? Okay. Okay. I'll feel better about it, too. I don't want anybody in pain will have to listen to me. This document right here that I have in my hand is all of the resolutions that went through the convention. There are 20 pages of these. And it tells you what the action was to concur or send it back to committee or whatever the action was that was taken. And it has a number. And this is on the website of the Episcopal Church. And you can go to a particular resolution that you might have interest in, and you can read the whole resolution and the reason behind it. So what I'm telling you is, as we start out here, I don't have all the answers. I wasn't sitting there through all of this. I've not read all of this material as the delegates at convention have. I will do my best to respond to questions you might have. What I want to do is just cover some of the major issues and allow you certainly an opportunity at any point along this time. Just step to a mic if you've got a question, and we'll try to deal with it. Okay, so the structural reform we've talked about, that was Resolution C095. The next big one, and this is probably one of the more controversial, certainly. We have a resolution called, the closer my mic gets to the speaker, that's what the feedback is about. The next issue is we have a new liturgy that has been approved after having been through 6 years in committee, the blessing of same-sex unions. This is not marriage, but this is a blessing of same-sex unions. It's a liturgy that will become a part of our regular liturgies available in the Book of Common Prayer. Where they will place it, I do not know. The thing you have to understand about marriage is that marriage is a legal institution. It's entered into between the couple and a particular state in which they are being married. What the church does is it blesses a union. That's what the church does. They should be held separately. Somehow, many years ago, they got intertwined, and it's been a big problem for the church ever since, for all churches, because clergy and churches wind up being an arm of the state, because I have to sign a marriage license for a couple and send it off to be processed and all that. Really, that's not a place that any of us want to be in, part of this legal institution, but that's the way it happens to work. But what the church does is it blesses the union of two persons. So again, this is not considered marriage, but it will become an option now in the church. Let me just read part of this to you. The resolution directs the committee to include diverse theological perspectives in order to further develop theological resources to invite responses from throughout the church, as well as from the Anglican Communion and the church's ecumenical partners. The resolution states that under existing canons, clergy can decline to preside at a blessing liturgy, and says that no one should be coerced or penalized in any manner supporting the 77th General Convention's action on blessings. So what does that mean? Well, what the resolution specifically states is that the first stop is with the bishop of the diocese. So no priest may perform a same-sex blessing in the diocese without it being approved by the bishop of that diocese. A. And B, that no priest or bishop can be penalized in any way, punished, whatever, as a result of either choosing to do this or choosing to not do this. So the big question in everyone's mind is, what will I do? And you can, so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and you can stop calling me at home and asking me these questions. While there is no provision in the resolution for the local church community to say we will accept this or not accept this in our church, I think it would be rather foolhardy on the part of the priest at the local parish to choose to do something that seemingly the majority of the congregation was against. Now, maybe you won't be canonically punished or anything else, but I would think that your term there would be rather short-lived if you did something that was the local congregation was so against. So, here's what I'm going to tell you. We'll spend some time talking about this, recognizing that there are going to be people on both sides of this issue, and recognizing that the way I try to manage, if you will, minister here at this church, we even do this in our bishops' committee meetings, is my feeling is that if an issue comes down to voting, majority versus minority, that you've already lost. And so my style is that we try to manage by consensus. And hopefully we can come to a place where we can all agree. So, number one, we're not actually supposed to institute this until Advent, which is the beginning of the church calendar. That would be December 2nd this year. We have some time to talk about that. As I pointed out to a couple of people, my luck is that I will be approached by a couple sooner rather than later. And we'll have to deal with this sooner rather than later. But I think we just need to engage in some conversation about it. And eventually we'll arrive at a place. Can I say that I'm ready to just run out and do this right now? No, I cannot say that. On the other hand, I can also honestly say to you that eventually I will come to that place and I will be prepared to do this. And I know that will be difficult for some, but I do see that on the horizon. My feeling is that if one has remained in the Episcopal Church as long as you have through all that we've gone through, that you got to be, I think, somewhat on this side of the line, if you will. It's sort of a draw in the same. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Is this going to lead to further schism in the Episcopal Church? Probably. I mean, anything we ever do, it's controversial, leads to schism in the Episcopal Church. So, am I going to concern myself about that? No, I'm not. I'm hopeful that we can be a loving enough community to embrace all perspectives and move on. So, haven't seen anybody step to a microphone yet. Yes?
May I step to a microphone?
Please.
I thought it might be helpful to start the discussion of the blessing of gay unions out on a jovial type note that involves our church. My son and his partner live in Columbus, Ohio. And they have 2 wonderful Guatemalan children that they have adopted, Spencer and Maria. And one day they were over here and the family came with me to church. And Spencer and Maria go up to take communion from Father Mike. And all of a sudden, Spencer runs out into the bathroom. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. Well, they're accustomed to going to a church in Columbus called King Avenue Methodist Church, which is a church of about 45% gay people. And it's very gay-friendly. But they drink grape juice at communion. Spencer takes a slug of this wine, and his face goes weird, and out he goes to spit. But anyway, I thought that was a kind of a cute story to begin a long conversation with varying points of view on an issue that's very close to my heart and that I have seen demonstrated in a very loving and joyful family. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Has Bishop Kate come out and gave support to it? Because you said that they didn't have to start it.
Has Bishop Kate out?
Let me rephrase it. Has Bishop Kate said that it would be allowed? Because didn't you say he had to allow it before it could come out?
It's pretty much a foregone conclusion that Bishop Kate will allow it. In fact, the night that this resolution passed, she was on 2 of the 3 network television stations saying how much she supports this. Yes, absolutely. There are 12 bishops who presented dissenting opinions. They wrote a dissenting opinion. There was yet another, there's another sexuality issue that came up in convention. The South Carolina delegation got up and left. They later reported they weren't leaving the Episcopal Church, they were just leaving General Convention. It was lunchtime. Yeah, South Carolina is actually known for getting up and leaving, so that's not necessarily a surprise. Chris, do you have something?
The question I have is if there's a consensus here in our parish to, I don't want to say allow this, but to support this. Is this a permanent thing, or is this something that we would look at, as our dynamics change here too? And I look at it, now this is my smart aleck sarcasm, but it's kind of like a PFF blessing. Which, like I said, that's not very nice of me, but sometimes I look at this, and I guess my question that kind of comes around, my other question is this something that, like they support counseling for marriage? Is there counseling that goes along with this too, with the parties?
Yes, that would be all of that. Yes.
Probably won't be for this in this wonderful church.
Don't you look
Yeah.
there with that, Margaret?
With the exception of that, I just turned 95 a couple weeks ago. I'm not quite there. But yes, I am a creole Episcopalian, and yes, I have been through many, many, many changes. Sometimes I think that change for change's sake is not always the best thing. And then I think, well, we need numbers, and we're losing members, not just in the Episcopal Church, but everywhere. Is this a way to gather in other Jesus welcomed people. And we think about his life, and it would be hard to turn away from, hopefully, and prayerfully, what is right.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So thanks for doing this. I think it's important that we talk about this, and too often we don't, and people slink off, and we never know why. So I think that's good. I think my opinion was I think this is important that here we have a very newsworthy example of the church broadcasting, saying, you know what, we're going to be known for who we accept, not for whom we exclude. And there's many, like fundamentalist churches out there that make headlines for the wrong reasons over exclusionary practices, and it's unfortunate. And viral videos of really bad things I won't go into here. Make headlines from some of those churches, and I think here we've done something where we say, you know what, we're more open than that, and we're above that. So that's, I don't know.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I would wait. I don't know what I think about it, and I don't know what I think the church's stance is. I guess at the end of the day, is that something that would keep me from staying in the Episcopal Church? I know there's a lot of things that we do as a church that I may not agree with, disagree with, have thoughts on. But it's kind of like being part of this country. I mean, there's a lot of things that we do in this country that are not things we agree with or that we wholly agree with. But at some point, it's a melting pot. It's something that doesn't define us completely. Everything that happens in this country. So to me, I guess it's kind of that. If it's something you struggle with, I encourage you to decide if that's something that has to define who you are, or is it something that happens within the place that you worship at that you may not completely agree with, but is it within you? So that's kind of my sense is, does it define who you are?
Thank you. Well, obviously, we can spend lots of time on this, and we don't have lots of time during two services, but I promise you is interest, as you have interest, which means that you have to show up, as you have interest and you want to discuss these issues further, we have to do so. So we'll try to schedule some additional meetings. We'll probably wait until kind of after school gets started and people can kind of settle in from the summer and get back. But we'll discuss these issues further. And none of this comes as a surprise. Okay, I mean it's not as though none of us saw this coming. But I also recognize that the reality is once it happens is sometimes emotional thing. That's why I wanted to provide this opportunity. Here's another. Let me just read this to you. 2 resolutions passed by convention that offer support for the transgender community by adding the gender expression and identity to 2 canons that prevent discrimination. One makes clear that the ordination discernment process is open to them, and another guarantees that their equal place in the life, worship, and governance of the church. And that was the point at which the delegation from South Carolina got up and walked out. The point here being there, what led to this? Well, there have been a couple of situations in a couple of dioceses where process to ordination. And they were held out of the process by the local commissions on ministry because of their gender identity. And it was seen as by these particular commissions as a mental defect that held these persons out of the ordination track. So the purpose of this was to identify that group just as gay and lesbian people are identified, and to be sure that they are not discriminated against. Any thoughts there? Chickens. There were lots of good things that came out of this convention. There's a resolution that allocated money for continuing to reaffirm support for peace in Sudan. There was a resolution on humanism, which helps to lead us further down the path with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Task force was put together to look at. We've had this relationship. We've been in communion with the ELCA for several years now. What that means is that our clergy can go back and forth, and we can go do a service at a Lutheran church, where they can come here. The ministers can come here and do a service here. But it's this now is as a result of that several years of experience, is looking at specifically areas where we seem to be somewhat divergent and seeing how they can address those things. An example of that is that there really isn't a ministry for deacons in the Lutheran Church. And so deacons in the Episcopal Church have kind of this no man's land, if you will, in between two churches. What's the reason for this? Well, we're seeing on an ever-increasing basis the ELCA is losing membership, and particularly in rural communities, you're starting to see the Lutherans and the Episcopalians coming together and forming one church, sort of the economy of scale. Sometimes they operate as separate congregations within the same building. Sometimes they merge the entire thing together. So anyway, we're heading further down that road. There was a resolution, AO50, authorizing the task force to study marriage. Calls for the creation of a 12-member task force to study marriage, including needs for pastoral responses by clergy for same-sex couples, and states where civil marriage is legal, as well as issues raised by changing societal and cultural norms and legal structures. So that responds in part to the question earlier about provision of support for persons in same-sex relationships. There were a number of poverty and justice resolutions. There was a resolution, A144, that passed requiring the tracking of the ratio of women to men in bishop election processes, along with racial and ethnic minorities, encouraging dioceses to strive for greater diversity in candidates. There was support for a resolution, B017, to support the Diocese of Jerusalem in building a hospital in Gaza with fundraising and advocacy support. There was a resolution regarding the dissolution of the Episcopal relationship as a new mechanism by which the church can address disagreements in the pastoral relationship between a bishop and its diocese. Denominational health plan, something that's been talked about for quite some time. Gives dioceses and parishes an additional 3 years to meet the requirements that they provide parity and health insurance cost sharing between lay and clergy employees. Deadline currently is, it's now extended to December 31st, 2015. At that time, all dioceses and parishes must be in compliance. Here's one that changes things, and yet doesn't. Sort of retains the traditional church that I know some of you seek. Access to holy baptism and holy communion. Resolution CO29, affirming the Episcopal Church's teaching that baptism is the norm for those who wish to receive holy communion. That's an issue that's been debated for quite some time. There are a number of parishes and dioceses across the country that are no longer requiring or asking the person be baptized in order to receive communion. The intent there is simply to encourage one who seems to be seeking to participate in the Eucharist, to be able to participate fully in the Eucharist. But that was struck down. I know it's been sent back to committee. It'll come up again in 3 years. But the church did choose to affirm that. We're going to enter into dialogue with the Mormon Church too. Since we're going to Salt Lake City in 2015, it was felt that maybe we ought to get to know each other a little bit better. So, these are some of the many resolutions. Some of them are real sleepers. Okay, many of them are real sleepers. Some of them are controversial and will continue to be controversial. We are not a confessional church. We are not a church that says, this is what we believe and you must believe this in order to be part of us. We are a welcoming community. Have always been. We've always said that our goal was to be a welcoming community. I think at last we're finally on the way to actually realize it. Now, for those of you who think that perhaps the decline in the Episcopal Church and numbers But I'd like to think we're much more than that. I don't like those kinds of labels when it comes to politics or anything else. I think there's too much that we can accomplish in the community. I think that in many ways we can be a model for the future of Christianity. If you read in the papers, media about all the things that young people are looking for in spirituality and in their faith, all the things they complain about, that they hate about church, that they hate about organized religion, are actually addressed in the Episcopal Church in so many ways. We just need to do better about getting the message out there. We need to be on mission. We need to be less focused on our own belly buttons and retaining our beautiful buildings. More about taking God's kingdom out into the world. I guess it's that time. Hopefully this wasn't too painful for you. I'm more than happy to speak to any of you individually, not right now, we have to church, but I'm more than happy to speak individually with any of you who need to discuss this. I'd like to think of myself as one who can listen to opinions on either side and try to be objective about it. But I need you to understand, I think we need to be realistic about it too. This is the future of our church. This is the direction that we as a body are heading in. It's not something that's being imposed upon you by some council out there. Those are elected representatives of the church. So I guess we all have decisions to make about our own future, where we see ourselves, but I hope you see yourselves as part of our family and part of what we're doing here on this little patch of ground on Fisher's Peak. Bless you all, and yes.
One more request. I don't think it would be too painful, but I would wonder about using some of our special prayers that we have in the prayer book, like I asked last week about the agriculture, or I think just things that are a little bit more global, so we aren't so focused on just our community.
Sure.
You know, and I don't know if that would maybe awaken some people too, that, you know, we are very diverse and there is more than just here.
We try to do that in our prayers for people every week, but let's do
But I
that.
think using some of the prayers that are in the prayer book too, that, you know, that are specific and maybe open people's eyes to the beauty of the prayer book and what is there, that they can use throughout the week.
Thank you. Okay, so you got 10 seconds to run the rest. Thank you, everybody.